just want to come on to this investigation that Sean Power, Jimmy Pershard and Ben Shenton want. You're on record of saying you welcome the investigation, but you want its remit extended to include politicians and the like.
Oh, absolutely. Bring it on. Bring it on. I mean, I am sure none of those that I work with have got anything at all to fear or hide from such investigation. Bring it on tomorrow. I'll cooperate fully. I'll be interviewed. I'll give them whatever information they need to be given. Bring it on. And as I say, nobody that worked with me, I'm quite sure, will have anything to fear from that. But you cannot just throw down an allegation without any evidence. And in fact, I say throw down an allegation, as I said before, they're doing it in a sneaky and cowardly fashion, which epitomises really the way the three of them have behaved during the whole of this historical abuse inquiry. But they're throwing this down. And they're totally ignoring the fact that there's not a shred of evidence in anything that they have said to the Attorney General in wanting this investigation. It's purely, they're using the News of the World scandal in London, which is a totally different set of circumstances. And I won't bore you by repeating the circumstances again and how it differs from our circumstances. But there is evidence that people were feeding material unlawfully to the media, both police officers and politicians. Now, there's ample evidence that Jim Pershard unlawfully fed confidential police emails to a journalist who supports some of the worst convicted paedophiles in the United Kingdom, child rapists, and this journalist, gave evidence for them at parliamentary committees, select committees, wrote books supporting them, and refuses to acknowledge the existence of historical abuse. Now, there's ample evidence that Pershard leaked confidential police emails to him. Now, Pershard has denied it, and Rose has denied the conversation which was taped. So, any investigation's got to include that. It's also got to include the leaking of information, and it's got to be an unlawful leak of information by Mick Gradwell to the same journalist. Not only has the Home Affairs Minister publicly accused Gradwell of doing it, but Mr. Kellett, the consultant who was working with BDO, has publicly stated that Gradwell confessed to him that he had committed this despicable act, which is exactly what Hugh Ord was talking about the other day when he was talking about police officers giving unlawful information. Now, I think that the investigation's got to include those two examples, and we've got to find out why they did it and if they received anything. I'm not saying they did, but the question needs to be asked: why did they do it? What did they get from it? And any investigation that the Attorney General launches into the unlawful leaking of information to the media has got to include at least those two incidents. And as I said, I have got nothing to fear from any such investigation. I welcome the idea of it, and I just wonder if those two, Mr. Gradwell and Senator Pershard, I wonder if they will feel quite the same.
Well, saying that, Mr. Gradwell, as last we heard, he hasn't offered any evidence to the ongoing scrutiny sub-panel into the BDO. He's the only one not to have offered any evidence so far. That could be quite telling.
Yes, well, I mean, you have to ask, what is it he's afraid of? Is he afraid of being asked direct questions? He was very vocal at other times. He's not exactly a shrinking violet, is he, when it comes to publicising his own his own cause. And if you look back to all the press conferences that he gave, and to all the interviews and all the information that he leaked to the media, none of it was ever with a view to forwarding and promoting the cause of justice for the abuse victims. It was all a destructive attempt to destroy the investigation, destroy the credibility of myself and officers working for me, and also to destroy the credibility of the evidence that the abuse victims and survivors had given. That's all that he has ever spoken about in public. He has never, he's never ever given any information to the media in support of the thing that he was supposed to be doing, and that was supposed to be getting justice for the victims. And much of what he said has been discredited now anyway in respect of the sellers and the teeth, etc., etc. And I don't need to go into all that yet again. Bob Hill and others have done superb jobs in exploding the myth that there were no sellers, in inverted commas, and practically everything that Mr. Gradwell has said has been totally discredited.
Yeah, it has. On that point as well, it just reminded me, everything that was in that News of the World, the one that's made all the controversy, the bad story, the News of the World done on the Hotel Garen, kiddie killers and the rest of it, none of what was published in that News of the World article has been disproven, has it?
No, it hasn't. I mean, a lot of it hasn't been proven, and we made that very clear to the News of the World journalists. But they were they were interviewing a lot of people who were in that home, and they met with a lot of people, featured a lot of their stories, and they were getting evidence from people who were in that home, which we could never ever totally corroborate. And the News of the World obviously don't have to work to the same standards of proof that we have to work. But you're absolutely correct. None of what was said in that article was ever actually disproved. I mean, we've never disproved the allegation that children were murdered in the home. As I've said so often, we weren't able to prove that either. So we would never ever have a homicide case. And I've said that, although the likes of Shenton, the Jersey Evening Post, never appeared to listen to that and never appeared to be able to get off their backsides and go and look up all the easily available source material on the internet. But nothing in that News of the World. I mean, all right, we wouldn't have perhaps maybe chosen some of the headlines, but that's newspapers, isn't it? Newspapers bring their headlines on to sell newspapers, but nothing that was in the substance of the article we were ever able to disprove. We found charred children's teeth, we found bones which were fleshed and fresh when they were buried and burnt, and there's got to be the possibility that at some stage a child or children were murdered in that home, but we've never been able to disprove or indeed confirm those allegations. Now, the police can't work on that basis, and we had to say we've no evidence of murder. And but the News of the World, as I say, we're getting stories from people who've been inside the home. They spoke to countless numbers of suspects. They spoke to some suspects before we even spoke to them. Sorry, some victims before we even spoke to them. And they spoke to suspects as well. So they were working under less stringent rules than we could. But they printed the story. It was open to anybody to sue them if they wanted to. To the best of my knowledge, nobody has ever done that or even complained to the Press Complaints Council.
Well, so getting back to this, I suppose it would be fair to say you want this investigation, bring it on, but let's include politicians, Gradwell, Walkup, Graham Power, yourself. Let's have a root and branch. Is that what you're saying? Absolutely,
absolutely. Let's have the independent and rigorous investigation into leaks, and go and interview these News of the World journalists and others who were supposed to go and interview David Rose and see where exactly the truth lies, because I know that my team were not feeding information and stuff that they shouldn't have been feeding to the News of the World or any journalists. But there's overwhelming evidence to say that some of those who are inferring that we did are actually guilty of that themselves. So we have nothing to fear. I have nothing to fear, and I'm sure Graham Power would say the same. He has absolutely nothing to fear from any such investigation. Well, I don't want to speak for Graham, but I'm sure he'll say that. And I think that somebody ought to be asking Pershard, Shenton and Power, would they welcome an investigation into their alleged leaking of material to journalists, and see what their response to that is.